good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. My name is Pukraj Ranjan. I'm the Head of Community and Impact at HundrED. We're so excited to have all of you join the Global Collection 2021 launch. Some of you might be having your breakfast, say in Colombia. Some of you maybe afternoon tea in the UK. And of course, some are having celebratory drinks in Australia. We're very excited that all of you can be part of this amazing event, even though 2020 has brought its own set of challenges, and we're doing the virtual summit for the first time. So if you experience some glitches with us, just bear with us. We, over this last week, have had over 150 sessions, both at the Helsinki Education Week and the HundrED Innovation Summit, with 2 more days to go and a lot more amazing interactive workshops to come. We would like to thank all our sponsors for supporting us, both the Helsinki Education Week and the HundrED Innovation Summit. So let's get started. As you can see, I might be a little nervous, first time being on a TV set, but very, very excited to do this with all of you. Over the next 100 minutes, you will hear from some amazing education innovators from around the world, as well as our amazing HundrED team. We will be talking about our selection process. You will hear about just success stories from our community and also from our youth ambassadors, and country leads. So let's get started. Our opening keynote will be by Kiran Bir Sethi. Kiran Bir Sethi is an Indian designer, educationist, education reformer, and social entrepreneur. She's the founder of Riverside School, that's in Ahmedabad, India, and Design for Change. Born in Bangalore, India, Sethi comes from a family of designers. With a degree in visual communication and from the National Institute of Design, she began her career designing restaurants and later writing for newspapers. While she had always had an interest in design thinking and designing experiences, it was her children, like for a lot of us, that started going to school that Sethi recognized her true calling. Dismayed by the unfriendly and rigid atmosphere in schools, she set up the Riverside School, which later led to the Approach movement and then Design for Change. We're excited to announce that Design for Change is one of the 100 innovations that have been selected in the 2021 collection. And now we would hear from her as she inspires this community by sharing her words on her experience with DFC. So with that, let's hear Kiran Bir Sethi.
Namaste. My name is Kiran Bir Sethi, and I am the founder of the Riverside School in India, as well as a global movement called Design for Change. And I am thrilled to be part of the Global Collection 2021, a time to celebrate 100 of the most scalable and impactful education innovations in the world. So, drum roll please. A little about me. It's been nearly 20 years since I started the Riverside School and around 10 years since I launched Design for Change. I think it's a good time to look back and reflect on the lessons and insights that I've learned about these 2 words, scale and impact. But I'd like to do it through the lens of excellence and equity. So, lesson number 1 about excellence and scale. In any field, and this is what I've learned, is that excellence is a subset of deep understanding. You know, when I started Riverside School, I did not come from a background of education. So I think the last 20 years have been spent on unrelentingly committing to understanding. Not just about how do you run a school, but really about what does it mean to educate our children. Consider this, that if we are human by chance, does education play a role to make us humane by design? So Riverside became a lab, iteration, prototyping became the practice, and the I can mindset became the impact.
The vision of Riverside is to create the best school for the world and not just in the world. Education is not all about content. It is about doing good as well as doing well. So right from grade 3, we start with this whole idea of citizenship.
So citizenship for me is when you add value to your society and make it better the way you want it.
26.
It is not easy to see them go through this experience of actually making the incense sticks. It's a dark and dingy place where they are all sitting cramped up. But when the child goes through that experiential learning, I see them building empathy and having gratitude for their own lives. I'm really proud that I'm creating citizens who are changing the world.
And interestingly, unbeknownst to us, when we committed to going deep, our impact actually went wide. In fact, the practices at Riverside started, influencing and inspiring schools around the world to see what was possible. I mean, this experience not only humbled us, but man, it really gave us a huge moral responsibility. So when we knew it was working at Riverside, we set out to codify every single practice and process at Riverside so that it could become replicable and then therefore scalable so that other schools could even deepen their impact. So the lesson I have learned is simply this, that excellence is both scale, changing the mindset, and scalable, changing the practice. Lesson number 2, equity and scale. To tell you the truth, when I launched Design for Change in 2009, I was unaware about the power of a framework. In fact, I had no plans to go global. Absolutely not. All I wanted to do was that the design of the solution had to be simple enough to be able to reach every child in every corner of India. That means it was designed for inclusion and diversity. So when we crafted FIDS, which is the Feel, Imagine, Do, Share, the 4-step superhero formula, ladies and gentlemen, it offered our children context and not content. In fact, it was a set of tools we gave them to be able to make the world, in fact, their world, a little bit more just, a little bit more equitable, a little bit more beautiful. And to kind of plant the seeds and empower in them this belief that they are not just mere spectators of change, they can be the participants, overseers, and initiators of change. So I guess the insight that I have learned is that when a solution is simple and contextual, it becomes scalable and equitable. I guess no wonder Design for Change is in 60 plus countries now.
Unfortunately, most ministers of education today are so consumed with science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and having higher test scores that they forget that at the end of the day, if we don't have people of good character, people who do the right thing, intellect in itself will destroy the world. It will not save it. So here's to Design for Change.
I've often been asked, what is your wish for 2030? What is your vision for 2030? Well, I like to say that I like to be a queen of some country. Okay, no, but on a more serious note, I think the wish is more for myself, that I continue to be more courageous, more shameless, more audacious, and to be able to serve our children with the stamina that it needs, so that one day they can design a more humane world. One day, very soon. So, once again, Congratulations for all the innovations for the Global Collection of 2021. And yes, Saku, we love you.
I hope you enjoyed that video that Kiran was allowed and was about to share with us. As you know, I also taught in India, and I've actually used Design for Change in my classroom back in 2010. Beautiful. So that's exciting. If you didn't notice, I have someone very special next to me. He's an innovator, an entrepreneur, a creative director, an author of 14 books, a restaurateur, and many, many things. But for us, most importantly, he's the founder and creative director of HundrED. So Saku, welcome on stage. And how are you feeling today?
Excited. This is a big day for us, and we are working towards releasing a collection whole year, and when you are able to kind of like show the work and being able to promote all these beautiful people, it feels special. Especially on a day like this when there's so much political chaos and so on, to be concentrating on the future of the world, on positive, on light, stunning.
Absolutely. And you heard from one of the most positive innovators we have in our community. What did you think about Kiran's video?
I'm emotional. I've been following their work for years, and I love actually I've been going through the beautiful work our research team has been doing, and I've been studying all the 100 innovators, the work, and the quality is really high. But I love also, I've been following also Design for Change for years, and I love the work Kiran and the team are doing. And there's so many reasons. One is, for example, quite often people are saying that the purpose of education is to help kids grow, teach growth mindset, teach can-do attitude, and so on. And that's exactly what they are doing in a really simple, beautiful way. But I also love the fact is that quite often people say that education is extremely local and education innovations do not travel, and it's really complicated to take an innovation from one country to another. And actually Design for Change is a perfect example of that not being a whole truth, because Design for Change at the moment is in 72 countries, and it's working beautifully in each and every one of those. And I think that it has potential to travel to each and every country in the world.
Absolutely. And so that kind of brings me to the point that Kiran brought up about excellence and equity, or scale and impact. Yeah. What is your opinion on that?
It's really beautiful and fundamental. One of our key values at HundrED is to be concentrating on both excellence and equity. And when you are combining excellence and equity together with the concept of scaling, there's an interesting level, which is the quality of implementation. So it's not enough to be scaling something unless you can keep up to high quality implementation. And I think that it's crucial is that when we are taking innovations from country to country, you are really mindful of the context, of the differences in each and every country, city, classroom, family, and so on. And I think that it's fundamental to be putting a lot of emphasis on implementation and co-development of the innovations in different contexts.
Absolutely. And for all those who are watching tonight, the Global Collection 2021 has already been launched, so you can check them out on the website. But Saku, how are you feeling about this year's collection? What do you like? What stands out?
Maybe it's a cliche, but I have a feeling is that this is the fourth one, and I have a feeling is that this is by far the best one. We went through so many innovations, and we had like 150, 200 possible ones. So the elimination game was really tough this year. But it's also really global, international. We are having innovations from 38 countries, and 42% of our innovations come from global south. And having that kind of diversity, not only coming from countries like Finland, but coming from all over the world, that's also kind of like crucial and making me really proud and happy.
Absolutely. And I think the world of education is looking for examples from every corner. So can you maybe expand a little more when an innovation is selected? Like what happens? What is HundrED's theory of change?
Actually, we are going to be hearing about the research process in a minute. But if I'm thinking a kind of like the big picture, what we are doing is that one of the key things is that we always start with the quality of the selections. So the research process has to be really, really solid. meaning is that even if we've been studying innovations for 5 years, I think that we are never ready. We have to be analyzing how the world is changing, how the needs are changing. So the quality of the research is fundamental. Then the second stage is changing the tone of the discussion. When we are discussing about the future of education, so much of the discussion at the moment is negative. We are complaining, for example, that the schools are not changing, and that's not the fact. Schools are changing each and every day. The problem is that we don't hear, because the media and the discussion is full of bad examples. And what we want to do is that we want to show is that actually the world is full of beautiful examples, and I think that Design for Change is one example, and the 99 others are just as good, as is the creativity spotlight we were releasing also today. Then there's a community. We have 100 ambassadors in over 100 countries, and the goal of our community is to really help these innovations spread. We want each and every one we've selected, we want to help them to spread. And then the last phase, which we are adding to our work more and more, is implementing at scale. So any educator anywhere in the world, if they need help to implement, for example, Design for Change of any of these, we are more than happy to help, and we are a non-profit, so we are kind of like that's one of the key things also at our work.
Absolutely, and I think till the innovations can't reach the classrooms, like, we need to make that happen.
Exactly.
So this year definitely has been a year of chaos and transformation when it comes to education, or literally everything. What would you say is the goal for HundrED next year, for 2021?
I'd say there's two goals. One is that I think that when we are coming, hopefully, back to some kind of normal, I wouldn't call that new normal. I would say is that that's a new world. So I think that we hopefully come to a world which is an improved version of the year before COVID, so that we are not sort of like, so this opportunity is not left unused. And then the second part is adding more and more implementation know-how. So like mentioned, is that identifying innovations is not enough. You really have to implement them well, and you have to make them travel. So we are concentrating more and more, not only on identifying, but also on the implementation.
Absolutely. And so what would you say is the big dream? What is 2030 going to look like for HundrED?
There's so many dreams, but I was showing the map, we were showing the map previously about the 100 innovations globally, and 100 innovations at the moment coming from 38 countries. And our goal would be that in 2030, each and every country in the world understands that no matter what the need is, there's a lot of solutions out there that could be useful. And we want that each and every child in the world has access to best possible education innovations. And we want to help. It's a hefty, it's a big goal, but we want to be working towards that one. And we are calling our approach ambitious, meaning is that we are ambitious, but we are also humble. It don't happen overnight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Saku.
Thanks, Books.
And I have been coming to the summit even before I worked at HundrED, and Saku's ambitious goal has stayed constant. So I hope you guys get inspired by the vision of this man and our team and the work we're doing, but also by the amazing innovators that we have selected and today we are launching in our 2021 collection. So now let's go to a community member that Saku talked about. We have Academy members from around the world, and next we'll hear from a very special, also country lead for Colombia, Juan Manuel Pico, who will talk about 3 of his favorite innovations from this year's collection.
My name is Juan Manuel Pico, and I am a HundrED Academy member. Let me share with you 3 selected innovations that you really need to know, and why not, to implement in many countries around the globe. Natakalam, that means we speak in Arabic, is an innovation from Lebanon. With more than 30,000 hours of Natakalam conversations and more than 8,000 users in 90 countries, this social enterprise have connected refugees with remote income earning opportunities related to language and cultural exchange, providing them with economic empowerment, purpose, and regain dignity. Worldwide, there is a need to better understand the refugee crisis and to encourage young people worldwide to get involved and support refugees. Definitely, Natakalam is a must watch. Another one, Global Oneness Project, an innovation from California. Based on the idea that stories tell us who we are, it gives us the opportunity to have global conversations while learning the universal values that connect us all. The Global Oneness Project brings the world to the classroom with free award-winning films, photo essays, articles, and educational resources. The stories explore cultural, social, and environmental issues using stories as a pedagogical tool to inspire growing minds. The Global Oneness Project is also a must-watch. Third, Roots of Empathy, an innovation from Canada. At the heart of the program are a neighborhood parent and a baby who visit the classroom over the course of a school year. The student observes the baby's intention and label the baby's feelings. Children learn that we share feelings and our feelings are at the core of our humanity. It is an evidence-based classroom program for primary school children that decreases aggression, including bullying, and increases pro-social behaviors such as caring, sharing, and inclusion. I am happy to share with you today some innovations from the global connection this year at HundrED. We need ambitious education innovations, impactful and scalable, that are effective also in low-resource environment and help our children flourish in life.
Perfect. Thank you, Juan, for your words and also sharing a little more about some of the innovations that have been selected. Now I have Chris Petrie next to me, who's the head of global research at HundrED. He comes with an unusually wide range of professional experiences and in education with over 10 years of research experience. But today he will be talking about his experience researching innovations at HundrED. So hi, Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So one of the questions the community always asks is, what do you mean by innovation? How do you define innovation at HundrED? Can you talk a little more about that?
So our focus at HundrED is to identify impactful innovations and help them spread. And what we mean by innovation in education is about meaningful improvements, like innovations that go over and above the status quo. So it's quite context specific. So what might be innovative in countries in Africa might be different in Australia or Finland, etc. And then we bucket these into 5 main categories. So one is skills, one is assessment, one is teacher development, one is leadership, and one is environments as well. So that's the...
Amazing. And I'm sure it's hard to cover the whole world with just those 5 categories or 100 innovations. So how do you go about the selection process? What are the phases that you have in making that selection happen?
So we have 4 main basic phases. So the first phase is all about discovery. Second phase is a shortlist from that discovery process. Third phase is the Academy member review process. And then the final phase is the selection workshops that we engage in.
And can you talk a little more about the phase 1?
So the phase 1 is a discovery phase, and we have lots of research activities. We conduct targeted outreach and things like that. But most of all, we think about contacting our community. So we have 600 plus ambassadors, as you know, who are our local eyes and ears on the ground. And so they're super important to tell us what's actually impactful and potentially scalable or transferable on the ground.
Absolutely. And a big shout out to our community. But then can you talk about once you have that shortlist, or how do you create the shortlist in the second phase?
Yeah, so the second phase is quite a difficult process where we've got a lot of innovations, and we're thinking about 2 main criteria, which you may have heard of, impact and scalability. So what do we mean by impact? We define it as evaluated as a valuable improvement within the innovations context. In addition to that, we require them to have at least 1 year of being implemented with real users. And there's secondly, scalability. And that's defined as either the innovation is actively scaling or is transferable to other contexts and regions.
Okay, perfect. And once you have this short list, like who reviews it? Is it just you and Khatija making the decisions, or what's the process?
So the third phase is the most important phase. It's essential because we involve our Academy members, and our Academy members are hand-selected. They're experts. There's 150 of them from 50 countries this year, and they made over 3,400 reviews to make up the global collection this year. And they review the short list that we create in phase 2 over 2 weeks using our impact and scalability tool. And they recommend and comment on the innovations as well.
Amazing. And I've heard really lots of good things about the tool. So what would you say is kind of like the final process? After the reviews are done, what happens next, and how do you get to that 100?
Yeah, so the final phase is the most difficult phase for us. As both kind of a combination of an art and a science, where firstly we rank the most favourable responses to the least most favourable responses. And then we consider the Academy member reviews and comments iteratively together, analysed in structured workshops. And so we're really looking for a balance of context and themes and also global spread. And so I think we're trying to respond to the current needs in education, like what was brought about this year with COVID, 21st century skills, fake news and that kind of thing. So really responding to what's happening in education now.
Amazing. So last question, where can people find these innovations, where to explore this? Can you help us with some answers?
So they're available right now on HundrED.org. You can go to our collection page and view all of these amazing innovations. You can also download our report on the global collection, but also we have an impact report. So this year we decided to divide up the yearbook into two separate reports to make that clearer. But finally, I just want to say a huge congratulations to all the selected innovators. We love your work and we're super happy to have you in our innovator community. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Welcome to all the innovators watching. Now let's jump into another Academy video. This time we'll be hearing from Jenny Finn, who's also the 100 country lead, or one of the 100 country leads for US, and of course in the Academy who helped review this year's selection. So with that, over to you, Jenny.
My name is Jenny Finn, and I am here in the United States in Floyd, Virginia. And I am the head of school and one of the co-founders of Springhouse Community School, where we're also launching this year Source Design. And Source Design is really a way that we can share the design principles of Springhouse, which is an example of vitality-centered education. So that's where I'm coming from, and it's great work, and I'm really excited about it. And I was really happy to be one of the reviewers for the innovations this year at HundrED. We've been really fortunate to be a part of HundrED as a small school in a small town. It's been a really beautiful thing to be part of a larger network of people and organizations that are committed to reimagining education. So as a reviewer of the innovations, I got to look at a lot of different things happening all over the world. And that was really exciting and also inspiring. So a few of those innovations I want to talk about today include, the first one is teaching tolerance. And I'm excited to talk about teaching tolerance because we've actually had direct experience with that organization at Springhouse. And let's see, probably about 3 years ago, teaching tolerance has a foundation also for educators. And Escuela Nueva, I really resonated with because they're really similar to Springhouse in that they're a case study or a model for, as they would say it, rethinking how we learn. And I'm really interested in case studies that are reconsidering, reimagining, and then taking the step of redesigning on the ground in a grassroots kind of way, education. And that's what they're doing. We really need these examples to move the larger macro system. And I know firsthand how challenging it is to do that work on the ground, redesigning and reorienting education. So I'm really grateful that they're doing that. And they've been doing that for a while now, where their grassroots work has really turned into more of a foundation sharing their model. And finally, I want to talk about one course, which is software that allows learners to really, I think, self-direct their learning in math and literacy. It looks like to me, again, I don't have personal experience with this innovation, but they're having powerful results in reading. With particularly, I think, the field test they did in Malawi. The accessibility of their software is amazing. It can be used rurally. I noticed that they offer solar charging as part of what they do. And it looked like they were looking to expand by including more languages, so it can be available to others.
Hello, welcome back. It's always fun because you never know who's going to be on stage. I'm Khatija Aladdin, researcher at HundrED, and thanks so much to Jenny in the previous video for sharing a little bit more about the innovations that were special to her. It's always great to hear what the HundrED Academy members found really inspiring and insightful. So we've talked a lot about Academy members, and I'm here to kind of share a little bit more. As Chris mentioned, they are part of the most important phase of the research process. So they're very integral to our review process, and their recommendations and perspectives help to inform our final selection. This year, as Chris mentioned, we had 150 members from 50 countries, which is incredible. And they really represented the spectrum of education and really helped share their thoughts and recommendations for the shortlisted innovations. So in order to better explain the process, we thought we'd invite some of the Academy members on stage with us. They're joining us from all around the world. We have Valeria from Chile, Taskin from South Africa, joining in from the United States, and Nehme from Lebanon, calling in from Kuwait. So I'd love to invite them now to join me.
Hi, Khatija.
Oh, so lovely to have you. Welcome to the stage. How's everyone doing?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. So,
Hola, hello.
Hello, so lovely.
Good morning from me.
Good morning. It's so fun that we can do this. This is great. So let's get right into it. Maybe I think the best way to start is if you could each introduce yourself quickly and your background in education. Let's start with you, Taskin.
Thanks, Khatija. So I recently completed my PhD researching online education and how it can support marginalized groups, particularly in South Africa. And currently I'm working for Open Development and Education. And that's a company that focuses on enhancing teaching and learning in low and middle income countries. And we use technology where it offers the most effective solution. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks so much, Taskin. And what about you, Valeria? What is your educational background and a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I have a master's degree in innovation in education, curriculum, and assessments. I'm originally an engineer, and then I have a true passion and vocation for education. So I currently work in Fundación Mustakis in Chile.
Well, thank you. And Nehme, what about you?
Okay, I finished my BS a long time ago in pre-medical studies. Then I did some research in pharmacology, then my master's in education, but I've been in education for 30 years. I've done it as a teacher, as an IT coach, instructional coach, assistant principal, and a principal. Maybe the only thing I didn't do is a counselor in the school.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing. And really, the wealth of knowledge we already have by 3 Academy members is representative of the diversity of the 100 Academy and the different educational stakeholders that they represent. So one question that we get a lot, and I'd love to hear from you, is what is the review process really like? Valeria, could you share a little overview on this?
Sure. So when I heard of HundrED, I really wanted to participate, and then I did. And I thought it was going to be hard, how I was going to have a balance between my lifestyle and what I was getting into. And then I had 3 great insights. The reviewing process was fantastic. My first insight was the staff members of HundrED, how well it was designed. It was thoughtfully designed. Crew members accompanied you. The instructions were very clear and timely. The second was the batch of projects all over the world, the opportunity to see, be inspired by projects from all of the continents. And the third one was how easy, fast the process was. When you go into the batch of projects, you have short and sweet questions, and you have this wonderful grid where you have to review impact versus scalability. So you're always focused on innovation, impact, and scalability for all of the projects. So it's wonderful, and I recommend everyone to join and be an Academy member.
Thanks so much, Valeria, for such kind words. You're flattering us. And how about you, Taskeen? What was it like for you, the review process?
I 100% agree with everything Valeria said. And for me, I really, really like the impact versus scalability tool. So in the research work that I do, that aspect of scalability is something that we really look at. So if an idea is innovative, but it's not cost effective, it's not really going to help the millions of marginalized students out there. So you really need to find that balance between impact and scalability. And I felt like that's what was centered in the review process. So yeah, I really, really like that aspect of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Taskeen. I think you really nailed it with that, trying to find the balance between impact and scalability, and that's exactly what we look at with our innovation selection, so thank you for sharing that. And Neme, with your school education background as a principal, what was it like to be part of the review process for you?
I second what Valerie said and Taskeen, actually, especially about the process itself and how simple it was and focused, and everything is laid just in front of you. Still, with being simple and so on, but there are some innovations that really capture you, and you spend hours digging, want to learn more about them and be inspired by them. And there were many.
Great. So it's lovely to hear that you had such an enjoyable experience. I mean, that's what we're working towards. We're always trying to improve the process to make it more inspirational for you, and also it's always very rewarding for us to read your reviews. Since today is the launch of the 100 2021 Global Collection, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the quality of innovations that you reviewed. Were there any key themes or insights that stood out for you? Let's start with you, Neme.
The innovations themselves they were, I can say it in simple words, eye-opening, inspiring, and really they challenged themselves. And it's really what I looked at is that those innovators, for me, this is innovation, which is when you challenge the status quo and you don't accept the status quo. That's innovation for me. And those innovators really did that. Now, after that, as a leader or as a school leader, I went with many, many wondering questions now how I'm going to take some of these ideas and implement it in my context, which is a totally different context than the one I reviewed.
Right. Yeah, that's such a good point. That question of how do I take this idea into my context, and something that we're constantly asking ourselves. What about Valeria?
So for me, it was super interesting to see different projects all over the world. I could see clusters that were focusing on how to help teachers with methodologies, teacher networks. And then I saw other projects that had to do more with different curriculum approaches based in nature, citizen awareness, diversity awareness. So that's it was great. And for me, it was truly inspiring to see all of these experiences, especially because I see how innovators around the world are really, really thinking in their local problems to solve them and have like a more global impact. So how do we solve something that is local that will contribute to the global system of education and future citizens or humans?
Completely. So eloquently said. Thanks, Valerie. And Taskin, what about you? I'm interested with your research background, how you found, if there are key trends or themes that came out through the process.
Yes, I really love the distribution of themes. So for me, ones that focused on radio or offline learning platforms were really impactful and cost efficient. And there were also really great applications about teacher professional development or supporting the whole student. So looking at the socio-emotional and mental health components of education. And one thing I really picked up from the applications that I really liked is that it's not necessarily only about the innovation, because some ideas were actually quite simple. They were really lean, but actually it was about how they were implemented, and most importantly, how passionate and dedicated those leading the projects were. And that really came through in the application.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we have just maybe 1 or 2 minutes left, and I think I've left the hardest question for last. But if you can briefly just share what the last 12 months have looked like for you, and if you have any insights in your fields of work from the pandemic. So I know not a lot of time, but Neme, why don't we start with you?
Oh.
Valeria, if you're there. The beauty of technology.
It was unmuted. You said 2 minutes. Talking about the pandemic is going to take a long time, but I will keep it short. All what I've done during that period, I had to stay 6 months in my house, actually in the apartment, didn't leave the door outside at all. In 2 words, it was just working and learning. And for me, the insight here is that it made us step up, be creative, and challenge ourselves. Even those who were resistant to do that, they did it. Even those who didn't believe they can do the possible, for them that was impossible, it became possible. For me, that's what I have taken from this pandemic.
Yeah, that's great insight. What about you, Taskin?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Khadija. So for me, the pandemic, it really highlighted how the digital divide really exacerbates inequalities in education. And in many low and middle income countries, tech-enhanced learning continuity, like high-tech solutions like virtual learning environments, they've not really been effective. Other things like radio and TV have much more success in reaching students, but there's still not enough evidence to show whether that access is translating into improving learning outcomes. And something that we've noticed is that good old-fashioned printed materials is still the most effective way to reach marginalized learners.
Right. And Valeria, final words to wrap up this interview. How has it been for you?
So a main word would be uncertainty. And in Fundación Mustakis, during these last months, what we did was unlearn what doesn't work today, readapt. What should we do to be in this extraordinary situation, and then make the necessary changes to guarantee access to education, having education activities online, offline. So we're in constant change, that we know. So we wish to guarantee access and education for all of the people that surround us, but also it's a borderless opportunity. Today, there are no frontiers. So we hope to connect with all the people with what we do, what we do best, right?
Thank you so much for joining us. So grateful for your time. It was really interesting to hear your thoughts on the review process and also insights about your work. So we'll now actually take it to 100 country leader from Kenya and part of the 100 Academy, Enos Magaga, to share some innovations he was inspired by.
my name is Enos Magaga. I'm from Kenya, Africa, and I'm a member of HundrED Academy, and I'm also the County Lead Kenya, HundrED County Lead Kenya. And I must say it was a privilege to be part of the Academy, having gotten a chance to review various innovations that I found some personal attachment to in regards to my local context where I do work and what I do. So basically, I work with an organization called Beats for Education in Kenya. And in Beats for Education, we also have our high school that is called Tembea Academy, and we do much of teaching. So in regards to this, I found the innovations relating, and I found them so inspiring in the process, getting a chance to learn from people's ideas, borrowing from their ideas, and seeing how applicable they are in my environment. That was an amazing opportunity. So in this regard, I'm going to talk about two innovations that I happen to have reviewed in the process, and I found some sorts of personal attachment to. And the first one is Eco Schools. So Eco Schools is an innovation that, it's talking much about environmental consciousness. And what touched me most is their approach. This innovation shares what I strongly believe to be true. And it is a school program that views environment consciousness to start from the classroom and expand to the school and eventually fosters change to the community at large. Well, you see, like I said before, in a local context, Beats for Education is located in the vulnerable Maasai communities in Kenya, a period that experiences drought for more than 7 months. So you can imagine the kind of environmental challenges that we have. And nothing has been done, no changes are taking place. So we have this common belief that if you want to make a change, perhaps which it's high time that we can make this begin from the classroom, training young people and get this change, hopefully, to spread to the community. Briefly, I want to talk about a second innovation that is called Creating Together by Kids to Kids. Wow, it sounds really great. Creating Together by Kids to Kids. Well, in Africa, in most of the African countries, and specifically let me talk about Kenya. Kenya, in context of Kenya, we got an educational system that I can argue to be depriving learners of the power to actually be engaged in their learning process, to critically think and take control of their learning process. So I think Creating Together by Kids to Kids, this is an online platform that allows learners to create, to bring out their thoughts through writings, through visuals, to tell their suggestions. And as adults and teachers, we get to know what they think, and we make the learning process about them. So these two innovations, I came in contact with them through the HundrED Innovation, HundrED Academy. And I must say that was the most awesome experience somebody could have said to be part of. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Magaga. We can really hear the passion you have for education when you talk about these innovations. So, keeping up with the element of surprise, I'm now back on stage with Chris, and we are going to talk a little bit about the global collection and a few key numbers. So, Chris and I have looked at a lot of innovations. Chris, how many would you say?
Thousands.
Thousands. I would agree with that. I'm probably biased when I say this, but our job is awesome. Thanks to you, the innovators. Learning about the amazing and inspiring innovations making a positive impact globally keeps us optimistic for the future of education. In the next section, we'll break down some of the key findings from the past year, and I get to be the lucky one in the interview position. Are you ready, Chris?
Yes.
Awesome. So my first question for you is, how has this global collection differed from previous years?
Well, we can't avoid the overused statement that COVID has changed education in such a dramatic way for so many. It's had probably the biggest impact on education ever. And I think, like people were talking about exacerbated inequalities and also just bringing to surface existing inequalities as well and prior problems. And so like things like remote learning, the sudden challenges to adapt for innovators in particular has been especially like a struggle for many. But it's like, especially for those that rely on in-person interaction. But all of them, they displayed a remarkable ability to adapt and pivot and experiment within a really short space of time, which is a really difficult thing to do at a government kind of systems level. So due to their relative size, in a similar way, a startup is more agile compared to larger systems. I think the education innovator community really demonstrated that as well.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And what trends have you seen from innovators in adapting to problems brought about by COVID, like school closures, distance learning, social distancing, those kinds of things?
Yeah, so there's been obviously a lot of alternative communication channels like radio, TV, SMS, and then cloud-based systems that have been deployed more at a government kind of systems level. And also, if we think of areas where there's a lack of access to electricity and digital devices and the internet and that kind of thing, there's been situations like linkers, or almost like mail people, like as volunteers, shifting from the teacher to the student and to the parents, and being important linkers, and kind of this devotion to pastoral care at the same time. So in addition to that, innovators, especially in those kinds of regions, are thinking, about delivering sometimes basic needs like food and other kinds of supports. But also, there's a lot of challenges, I think in particular social emotional skills like well-being is particularly important in this time, especially for leaders. I think leaders have been under incredible amount of stress during this time, and trying to navigate and adapt to this sudden situation. So innovations that foster empathy, cooperation, and collaboration, especially between students, between parents and teachers, I think are especially important. We tried to reflect that in the Global Collection this year. And yeah, that's all I'll say about that one.
Thank you. I completely agree. More compassion is definitely needed. Can you tell me a little bit about the overall numbers and trends from the Global Collection this year?
Absolutely. So hopefully on the screen now you can see a global map of the spread of the innovations. And then next we're looking at the continental spread. And so 15% originate in Africa, as you can see here, 26% originated in Europe, 21% originated in Asia, 7% originated in South America, 26% originated in North America, 5% originated in Oceania. And so we have as Sakul mentioned before, from the Global South with 42% and the Global North 58%. And then if we go on to the total users, the innovations range from 350 users right up to 150 million users. And that combined user impact, even though this is kind of like a number that maybe doesn't mean a lot, but combined together, the 100 innovations impact 212 million students from the whole global collection. Great. And then if we move on to when they were founded, if we look at the year that they were actually originated, it's remarkable to see that most of them have been found in the last 8 years. So if you consider those impact numbers that I just mentioned, that's a remarkable growth rate in terms of the innovations. And then if we go on to the next part, which is the country spread, it's even more interesting, where an average of 28.9 countries have been spread to for each innovation. But I mean, we've got to take into account there's some innovations that have spread to many countries. So it ranges from one country to innovations that have actually scaled to every country. But actually, over 90% of them have scaled to over 2 countries. So that it just gives you an indication that most of these innovations have at least kind of transferred to multiple contexts. But also, consider innovations that have only adapted to one country. If you consider large countries like India, for instance, there's an incredible amount of context and diversity there. So even within countries, you see an incredible spread within cities and regions and things.
Right. Great. And do you have any overall recommendations about what works to implement innovation successfully?
Yeah, so I think, as I said before, cooperation and collaboration is really key. You can't have a top-down or a bottom-up only approach. There has to be a multi-stakeholder, and everyone has to be working together within the region in a really kind of engaged and intentional way. So leveraging the community, I think, is really, really important here. So not just thinking within the traditional school walls, but also thinking how can we work with the community, because the community members are often really interested in working in education and helping out where they can. And so one of the other things that I noticed that I think has been reported often is parents have parental involvement within innovations and communication between parents, students and teachers has been kind of like a silver lining, especially for this pandemic situation. And that's all I'll say about that one.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. I'm part of the research team, but I'm still always excited and impressed to hear all the numbers and the spread that we have. So thanks so much for sharing and doing this interview with me. I'd now like to take it to California with Priyanka Patel, who will share a little bit more about the innovations that inspired her through the review process.
My name is Priyanka. I'm originally from the United States, but I've spent time in India as a primary school teacher where I used to teach grades 3 and 4. After that, I moved to Finland to continue my studies. So I did my master's in education, and I am currently a final year PhD student at the University of Jyväskylä, where I'm also studying education, particularly reading interventions. So it was my great pleasure to review innovations this year for HundrED. Just some of my favorite innovations. One of them was Dream a Dream. As somebody who's worked with at-risk youth in India, this is something that really I hold close to my heart. And something that really stuck out to me about this innovation is that they're not just working with the child, but they're working with all the people that surround the child. And I think that's something that's really important to creating a long-lasting impact. I also really enjoyed Hay Schools. So of course, as somebody who's seen the impact of the Finnish education system firsthand, I think it's really great that Hay School is bringing this quality learning environment to children all around the world. In many places, there still aren't early childhood curricula and quality learning environments for young children. And so the fact that Hay Schools is trying to provide this, I think is really great. I also really enjoyed Kubo Robotics. We hear so much about the benefits of coding and all the great things that coding can teach children, but I think in a lot of environments, kids are restricted by access to technology, and Kubo Robotics actually uses non-tech methods to teach coding, and so I think that it's a very applicable innovation in a lot of environments. And I also really like that they work with really young children, so up all the way down to 4-year-olds. And so I think that's really innovative. And finally, I just want to speak about Speed School. So Speed School works with out-of-school children, and they work in environments where it would be really easy to ignore these kids. And I don't think that there's anything more impactful than getting kids back into school.
Thank you, Priyanka. And yes, I'm back on stage. I've been hearing from some angels in our war room that people from around the world are joining this live stream. You could watch it on Facebook, on our Attendify platform, on YouTube, as well as on our website. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Please make sure you're commenting. We have been hearing now for a few minutes. If you would want to put your favorite innovation in the chat, we would love to hear what you're thinking. I would now invite Deepak Ramola on our virtual stage. He's the founder and artistic director of Project Fuel, a 2-time TED Talk speaker, a UN Action Plan executor. He serves also as the Kindness Ambassador for UNESCO MGIEP, forwarding the understanding of life lessons of women from the Maasai tribe to young girls in Afghanistan to sex workers of Kamatipura. His passion is in capturing life lessons. So let's go over to Deepak, where he's talking to two of our innovators, George Cowell from Rising on Air and Unni Puliainen from Kiddes Science. So Deepak, let's talk about our lessons from 2020.
Namaste and hello everyone. Welcome to the global collection launch at HundrED this year. I'm joining in from the mountains of India here in Dehradun. And I'm so excited to finally have this chance to share with you what I have been able to learn and harvest in these past few months. One of the most beautiful things about fear is that it's riddled with contradictions. As we prepare for the worst, by stocking up more toilet paper, pasta packets, and running to the grocery stores, we're hoping to build a safe future. And that hope, along with that fear, is a good concoction in understanding where we might be headed as a community. As somebody who, for the last 11 years, has documented people's stories, I had a first-hand insight into what the new world, as the Indian author Arundhati Roy calls it, the portal might take us to. I have been through my organization collecting life lessons and human wisdom for the past 11 years, asking people what are they learning through the ordinary and the extraordinary circumstances of their life. And in this pursuit, I couldn't be more happier today to be joined by two such individuals who are part of the 7 billion people. The world's population, 7 billion, somewhere sounds like a good news only when you think that these 7 billion people also might be 7 billion perspectives and hold key to 7 billion solutions that we may not have acknowledged before. So I'm joined in today by George Cowell and Unni. Both of them are incredible change makers, educators who are facilitating what education in the dynamic of this pandemic might look like. And so thank you, George and Unni, for joining in this conversation today. Very, very excited to have you.
Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's interesting, guys, when the COVID pandemic hit and there was no more travels and, you know, we saw news flooding in our screens, whether cell phones or television or newspapers. I had a life lesson come to me through all this experience. And the lesson was, crises don't reveal who we are, but rather they give us a chance to craft who we can become. Because before this pandemic, I was running from one project to another, hopping from one flight to another. And as I had what I call the unexpected pause of this lockdown, I was able to recalibrate of what really matters and how I can cut down the noise. So that is what it helps me now become and achieve. And I'm curious to know, George, if you had a similar experience of this COVID-19 revealing of what you would want to now chase as COVID chaos settles down.
Yeah, I guess there are two things. Thank you so much for having me on. The first thing is, when we started responding to the crisis in Liberia and Sierra Leone, as an organization, we started producing radio and SMS content for our partnerships with government in these two countries. And we set out to just work domestically, and what we realized is that there was interest and appetite for the content we had all around the world. And in the subsequent 6 to 7 months, we've ended up working in partnerships in Zambia, India, Pakistan, and with around 20 other countries and 5 other governments in a way that we just never anticipated. So I think it's definitely changed. It's opened things up for how we see our role, and it's made us feel really excited about the possibilities of working with great partners all around the world. I think the second thing is that I was watching Elon Musk put a rocket into space and land it back on a drone ship a few months ago. at the same time as we had hundreds of millions of children around the world who weren't getting any education. And I guess it makes me realize that there's just a huge amount still to be done. And it's hugely exciting to see all the innovations been taking place in the last six months, but there's just so much more to do. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds.
I love that you use the word excitement to, kind of condense the last 7 months, because that's really what the world needs. It needs more hope, and our hope is our knowledge. Uni, has the experience been similar for you? And in your realm of work, what has it allowed you to know better?
Yeah, thanks. Sort of actually similar ideas than what George was saying there, that we also as a company, we sort of, I think really, really nicely, we realized we need to embrace the change and sort of like not step away from the collision. And like we see that COVID has been shaking the society and education field and is still shaking everything, that we can actually like use this momentum and the change to actually create something new and see new ways of doing things. We were just on a way of having big deals with kindergartens and with learning centers around the country, and it was all about having the lessons in a classroom. And then COVID happened, we realized, okay, slowly starting realizing this is not going to happen, we need to do something. And we sort of pivoted in a second, and somebody just said like, why don't we do this remotely? And we're going, oh, why wouldn't we? And realized that with quite small adjustments, we could make our approach exactly the same, but do it remotely. And we realized that we can actually now reach way more children and really empower them to explore the problems, and we can actually reach more people this way. And also, like just I was saying that this whole shaking of the society, I think it's also created these things that even though COVID is really like physically separating people, I think it's also creating new ways of people to get in touch and really to meet each other. And even in the beginning of this week, I was teaching a remote lesson to India, and I was sitting in the office on my own chair with my laptop, and I was having a really actually having a moment with children on the other side of the world. And in the end of the session, they say how they enjoyed it, and they shout, "I love you, ma'am." And I'm like almost shouting back, and having these experiences we wouldn't have without. So really embracing the change, I think, is something that we've learned, definitely.
Absolutely. And I love that you say it's been almost revelatory for you. It's not something that you have strategized for years. COVID has allowed us to create new choreographies and dance new dances, and in many ways allowed us to unlearn a lot of things. And that's what I would love, George, Uni, both of you to highlight and share with us. You know, we talk about learning so much in education that we forget almost what can we unlearn. And the pandemic taught us that we need to unlearn how we taught, like Uni mentioned. It doesn't have to be physical, it can be online as well. We also have to unlearn that our children are not just beneficiaries, but they are collaborators. We have to unlearn that technology is just a mere resource. It's a very important stakeholder. Are there unlearnings that you have and that you would like to share?
It's at least have something to do with unlearning. And this is something, it's not really 2020 specific, but something I've had since I was a child. And my mother used to always tell me that there's no point in regretting anything you've done. Like you can think that, oh, I could have done something differently. But when I made the choice to do something, was it half a minute ago or a decade ago, I did it then with that information that I had at that point, with that surroundings, with everything that was happening then. And now I can think that I could have done something different, but then I didn't have that information. And people don't consciously make bad choices. You make the best choice possible in that moment where you are. And I think this year, there's been a lot of situations where I start doubting whether I did the right choice. Did I go and meet should I have gone and meet my parents? They're elderly, and should I go and meet them? And at the point when I did it with the best intentions possible. So I think having this sort of acceptance there is a really powerful lesson that I've really had with me the whole year.
Thank you for sharing that. George, could you recollect one?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much unlearning. I guess one thing that we realize now when we reflect back that we weren't getting right was we operate across a number of countries, and those teams just didn't interact in the way that they should have done previous to this crisis. And it really forced us to bring the team closer together. It really taught us to think about ways of using technology. And so I guess it's really important going forward that we don't lose that what we generated from this crisis, and that feels to me to be most important. So it's more of a reflection of what we weren't getting right and what we've learned, and make sure that we hold on to some of these things that we've developed in the past 6 months.
That's powerful, because now everybody knows better, and it's a personal choice almost after the pandemic gets over and all its shades get over. Do you choose and decide to live that authentic essence of what you felt during the 7 months, the togetherness, the connectedness? So that's powerful. Thank you, Uni and George, and to everybody watching. I think more than ever before in our lives, we have been brought together by a global crisis for global commitment to how we teach, how we learn, and how we unlearn. And perhaps, as Albert Camus, the great Nobel laureate, said, the love of life comes with the despair of life. And hopefully through the work that you do with Rising on Air, or Uni, you do at Science A Kids, I hope we are able to build the next generation that believes we did our best to sow seeds that will allow them to have a fruit-laden forest of possibilities. So thank you so much, George and Uni and everybody watching. And back to the studio for the Global Collection launch. Thank you.
Thanks, Deepak, for harvesting these amazing life lessons from our community. And I've just absolutely loved in this last year talking to different stakeholders that we have. As some of you already know, at HundrED, we believe that change can only happen when you bring like-minded people together. So today in the HundrED community, we have, of course, innovators, but also country leads, ambassadors, youth ambassadors, members of the academy, as well as advisory. And I'm very honored and privileged that now you will meet 6 of our community members, and we'll just chat with them how their year has been in 2020. So first of all, we will have Justin Blake and Nicholas J. Martino. Justin is one of the country leads from UK, and Nicholas is the country lead of Mexico. They are part of an exclusive pilot group of ambassadors who've been helping us do both global and local initiatives, and just helping us reach more educators and users or children around the world. So let's welcome Nicholas and Justin. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you? Great to be here, Pukhraj. Really excited about the summit.
Absolutely. We're so excited to see all the community members join. So in this kind of section at the launch, I want to hear just your experience being HundrED community members. So Justin, if we start with you, what has been your one memorable experience as a country lead in the past 3 months of the pilot?
Well, it's a privilege to be an ambassador and a country lead. For me, what's been really memorable is the experience of actually being part of growing the movement. I've absolutely loved the virtual online meetings I've been having with leaders, catalysts, networkers. One really memorable, exciting experience in the last 3 months has been meeting with one of the world's largest associations for teachers. 500,000 teachers talking about HundrED, talking about innovation, talking about innovators. We can connect with the HundrED movement to grow our grassroots movement, to identify and also spread new innovations across the UK. Really excited about that relationship, that connection. So that's one of the really memorable moments for me. And in addition to that is conversations with groups in the UK, award-winning schools that are looking at this dream of having innovation hubs in their regions, connecting to other innovation hubs around the UK, and rethinking assessment, rethinking testing and examinations. These have been really memorable experiences for me in the last 3 months as the UK HundrED lead, and really excited about the future as well with HundrED.
Thank Thank you, Justin. And obviously, we wouldn't have been able to have the community we have without work of our country leads and ambassadors who help us grow every single day and help our innovations be available in different contexts. So let's go to Nicholas next. Nick, I know you have been doing something similar and you're actually helping us grow the community in Mexico. So what would your response be, not just how the 2020 last 3 months have been, but what are your hopes for the next year as we step into 2021?
Yeah, no, this is great. It's such an honor to represent educational innovation where I live in Mexico. I've had a global experience teaching and running project-based learning and authentic learning throughout the world. And what's been really exciting for me is now uniting Mexican educators from around the country to really inspire all educators that there's an amazing time ahead of us in what we could do together. And so recently we had the first ever meeting of HundrED for Mexican educators, and there was 30 educators that came together from about 15 different states in Mexico, and we were all meeting for the first time and networking for the first time and developing a professional learning network of Mexican educators in the Spanish language. And we're working really closely with the other Latin American country leads to make sure that Venezuela and Colombia all come together. And so for the future, we look forward to moving ourselves ahead and continuing these conversations and doing more dynamic work together to raise the level of innovation in Mexican education.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for all that you guys do for the HundrED community. For those watching, if you're interested, especially the ambassadors, if you're interested in the HundrED country lead role, we're opening the applications for a new set of country leads on Monday. Of course, we already have 19 country leads from 17 countries, so they will stay with us, but we'll bring in a few more. So if you're interested, go to the website and check out that role. But let's move on. Let's talk about another community role, which I absolutely adore, the HundrED ambassadors. We have over 600 ambassadors right now from 120 plus countries. These are, as Saku said earlier, the eyes and ears for HundrED on the ground. They help us identify innovations, validate innovations, and inspire a local movement and inspire local conversations that can help our education innovation spread. So today I am joined by Vince Siu, who's the HundrED ambassador from Hong Kong, and Shweta Ednani, who's our HundrED ambassador from India. Vince and Shweta, welcome to this conversation. Are you enjoying this live conversation that we're having so far? Would love to hear from both of you.
Hi. Yes, really. It's quite interesting to see what's been happening, and this is like the virtual way of doing things now. So quite interesting. Looking forward to the rest of the night.
You, Vince.
Yeah, it's been. Thanks for the invite. It's been a great experience. Just dialing in global conversation. So really excited to be a part of it.
Perfect. And I would love from both of you to talk a little bit of what you have done to help share the voice of our innovators in your particular country. So I know, Vince, you have done a bunch of glocals. If you can quickly talk to us about that. And Shweta, also about the webinars you've been hosting. So maybe a few lines, both of you. I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm based here in Hong Kong. And a couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to host a couple of focus groups as part of the HundrED and UNESCO Futures of Education initiative. So hosted a couple of glocals here. The two talks were titled Open Up a Little, which focused on creating compassionate and empathetic learning environments, and Full Steam Ahead, which explored the future of inquiry-based learning. And it was really great to work with Pukraj and the HundrED team. We featured 2 Hong Kong innovators and 2 global innovators in each of the talks. Pukraj recommended some top-notch speaker from around the HundrED Innovator Network. It was great getting to meet more innovators from the network. And we had quite a great turnout and captured a lot of insights as well. So that was really fun.
Thank you, Vince. And I know UNESCO team for whom you did the Futures of Education conversations, they were really impressed by your work as well. Let's go to Shweta. What have you been doing with the innovations and the ambassador community? Would love to quickly hear from you as well.
Well, thank you, Pukhraj. And we've had a chance to host one local in Bangalore at the beginning of this year. It was great, and Pukhraj was very, very helpful with the innovators that she recommended. We got a lot of amazing feedback from the community in Bangalore who came out and spoke about how interesting these innovations were. Apart from this, also we've collaborated with the Innovator community for the webinars that we've been hosting. It's the Kaleidoscope series. So it's every month we have a new theme. We've covered the changing role of school leaders. We've covered multidisciplinary learning. We've covered policies. And we've kind of had multiple 100 innovators be a part of these webinar series. So it's been such a great learning. And it's been such a great collaboration.
Thank you, Shweta. That was absolutely lovely to hear. And thank you for you guys to opening up these platforms and letting our innovators speak to local communities around the world. So question to you, Shweta, maybe we'll start with you. As we step into 2021, what do you want the conversations within the 100 community to look like, sound like? What should we be discussing? What are your hopes?
Well, I think, currently the topic is learning through discontinuity. We are trying to really see how, at Mantra for Change, the organization I work with, we are trying to see that what are different approaches, different methods that people are using to continue to provide the quality of education that they have been. So I'm looking forward to seeing more innovations, looking forward to collaborating with these innovators. On more than just webinars, maybe a lot more learning opportunities. So yeah, looking forward to all of that.
Amazing. Thanks, Shweta. And Vince, what is happening in Hong Kong? What are the trends you're seeing, and what should the conversations look like in 2021?
Yeah, it's funny. We're talking about this now because, as you know, I'm hosting a masterclass session on Friday on building communities and partnerships, right? So I think right now, whether it's in Hong Kong, whether it's part of the global conversation, there's a lot of just innovations that are starting to bubble up already. So I think the next big thing really is for us to be able to build partnerships that span across regions, across cities, across different countries, for us to share best practices, different ideas, and start thinking about how they can scale and to be adapted, across borders. So I'm really excited about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. And also anybody who's registered to the summit and is interested in the masterclass discussions, both Shweta and Vince will be hosting those tomorrow and day after. So make sure that you join in and also get to meet them in person. But let's move on to the last but the most important community stakeholder in any education conversation, the young people. All we do at HundrED and in our community is to serve these future stakeholders of societies. Our 100 Youth Ambassadors is a community of active young people who want to be part of the change together. So today we have Ruhananjan Karthik joined from Finland and Liam Davis-Bosch joined from US. So Ruhan, Liam, welcome. How are you guys doing? How's the evening/day looking for you?
Thank you so much for having us.
And Ruhan, are you
thank
there?
you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm doing well, and the day's been going well so far, and hope the event's been going smoothly for you as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Ruhan. So kind. Yes, I hope it's going smoothly. We will see in the chat section. But Ruhan, let's start with you. Talk about your most memorable experience as a youth ambassador this year. I am assuming Mundo has to do something with it, but I'll let you share.
Right. So my friend and I have been organizing an online debate championship over the past 4 months. And I think my most memorable experience this year has been organizing that and being able to communicate with an open-minded set of youth from all around the world. I think I've been able to build meaningful friendships online and have deep, meaningful conversations as well. And it's something I never really expected that I could do, but the circumstances have allowed for it, and I'm very pleased and I'm very happy that I've been given this opportunity and been able to work with so many people, have so many conversations about contemporary topics that affect us on a day-to-day basis, and work with so many people from around the world, so many youth full of ideas and energy. And I think that's why we're all here to adapt, to innovate and celebrate that. And I'm really happy to be here. Yeah.
Thank you, Ruhan. And it's definitely interesting to see how young people have taken on to this challenge of, what 2020 and the COVID crisis has thrown at us. And just really, you guys have adapted so beautifully. So congratulations on your project this year. Let's move on to Liam, who also has been very active in the youth activism space. So Liam, for you, not just from the HundrED youth community, but just largely young people everywhere, what do you hope to see in 2021?
Yeah, I think just with my time being a part of the Youth Ambassadors, I've been able to see just the amount of enthusiasm and energy among the people that surround me. And that is so exciting to see and is definitely encouraging for me. And so I'm really excited to both see how my fellow peers in the Youth Ambassador program are able to just grow and thrive as they learn more and discover more about their passions, as well as the HundrED program and organization, and see how much that's going to grow in these coming years.
Absolutely. And I hope that all of you will share your innovations and projects in the near future to inspire the rest of our community. And again, for the people watching, if you know of a young person who will be willing to be part of a Youth Ambassador network, we're actually opening the 2021 applications right now. So you can go to our website, and if you're interested in becoming part of this community, please do apply. But thank you everybody for joining and being part of this conversation. We will go now to Wendy, who is also part of the Academy, to just hear from her how the experience was in just reading about the innovations and which ones were the innovations she absolutely loved.
I'm Wendy from Singapore. I'm an education and international specialist based in Singapore. I have experiences teaching in Singapore, Japan, and around the world. So I'm very passionate about education and strongly believe that every child should have access to quality and equitable education. So I'm so excited to be part of the HundrED Academy to look at these impactful innovations. So today I would like to share about 3 innovations that I'm very excited about. So the first innovation is EdCamp. I think this idea of unconference combined with professional learning exchange for teachers is brilliant. It is possible to create high impact if EdCamp is organized around the world for the right group of participants. And I also like the idea of having the EdCamp organizer handbook, which I think is very useful for different communities around the world of teachers to organize their own EdCamp. I actually shared about EdCamp on my LinkedIn, and I received interesting queries from Singapore practitioners and education managers because they really see the value in facilitating similar professional unconferences to help to strengthen the idea of exchanges amongst teachers. The second innovation that I'm very passionate about is Metis Fellowship. I believe that fellowship is very impactful in providing school leaders resources and network, because ultimately education leadership is crucial and school leaders and management should be given the resources and network. I think the strength of this innovation is the creation of a professional fellowship, a professional community of school leaders, curriculum and policy experts who can share knowledge, resources, and even collaborate for social change. And I think as the fellowship community grows, the impact will increase over the years. And finally, the last innovation I'd like to talk about is Project Everyone, world's largest lesson. I think the resources are very comprehensive and useful for educators. I would imagine myself using these resources in the classroom and customize them for my students. And I think the impact will be tremendous if more educators and institutions know about the resources and can use them in their classroom. And I really like the idea of how they have implemented the United Nations SDG framework to look at how education resources could be used by teachers for their students. And I think their recent Climate Education for Everyone resource will be very useful to talk about climate change to empower teachers to create this movement with students.
Thank you, Wendy, for sharing your thoughts on the innovations. Absolutely loved hearing from you. It's been incredible this past few minutes now, I think, just hearing from different community members. And we wanted to bring back one dear innovator, Deepak, again to share just the last round of life lessons with two of our other innovators. He will be joined by Emily Evans from the Economist Educational Foundation and Martha Berenche from Scolas Occurrentes. So Deepak, close us off with some next sharing of life lessons.
Welcome back, everybody. As I was mentioning earlier, I have been collecting life lessons for the last 11 years of my life. And there is one life lesson that I have thought about more than anything else during the last 7 to 8 months. It's a life lesson that came in from a theater artist from Antwerp, Belgium. When I asked him, what has your life taught you? He simply said, stop at the red light. I was baffled. I thought, how could that be somebody's profound learning? And he explained that all his life growing up, he was only jumping signals up until the point where he would stop at a red light and realize that stopping at a red light was also an act of meditation, because you could see everybody else chasing something, getting from one place to another. Stopping at a red light meant you left home on time, that you were better prepared and more disciplined. I think the pandemic, COVID-19, might be our red light too. And stopping or pausing at it allows us to have many different perspectives and seeing the world rush by or pause with us to help us get through. I'm joined in with two new innovators, Emily and Martha, and they both have been running some incredible projects. Emily, I would want to first come to you with a question that I have been meaning to ask since I read about your work. Is allowing ourselves in this, chaos and in this time, uncertain time, somewhat the ability to see at the larger forest and the trees in that forest. I think many educational systems, innovations around the world were very focused on the trees. How does every child cope? How do we personalize the learning we are providing? But this pandemic has somewhat allowed us to zoom out and say, what does the forest look like? Do we have technology to, fertilize it? Do we have enough sunlight? What would you say has been that zooming in and zooming out for you in the last 7 months through your work?
That question really, really hits on the experience that we've had of the pandemic, actually, at the Economist Foundation. So on the one hand, yeah, it has allowed us to look at the problem that we're trying to solve in this very macro way, partly because the pandemic has highlighted again the urgency of the problem that we're tackling. So we give young people news literacy skills. We help them to engage with current affairs. And this year has obviously shown that that's massively important. So on a really big macro global scale, although we are a UK charity, we're seeing that massive global challenges like inequality, like climate change have been even more highlighted this year, and they are going to profoundly affect the next generation. At the same time, we're also seeing in the pandemic all of the reasons why young people are not getting the skills to understand or have their say about those issues. So again, on a global scale, misinformation is a massive problem. We've seen that that misinformation about COVID has been really dangerous. But a third of UK teachers say that young people are not developing the skills they need, that the critical literacy skills that are taught in schools are not transferable to the real world. So we've seen the urgency of news literacy really highlighted. But at the same time, the pandemic has also in some ways helped us to also zoom in a little bit more. So we work with schools and schools closed. So we had to then immediately find ways that we could still be reaching and working with young people, and technology allowed us to do that. So we adapted our program for online delivery and for home learning. So we started working more directly with parents and with students in their own homes. So we felt in some ways kind of closer to our individual students. We also ended up looking even more global. So we were able to run an international discussion between over 500 young people in 13 different countries that we had never worked before. But we were sort of spurred to do this because we had to really focus on, well, then what can we do online? And so, yeah, we were able to reach young people that we wouldn't be able to reach, and we zoomed out a little bit more. So it's definitely been a prompt to look bigger and look global, but also feel in some ways more directly close to the children that we're supporting.
True, absolutely. And what I find so important and imperative about your work is that you're trying to take the statistical nature of news and make it, with human interest. You're making it more personalized. And that's so critical because it's not just a UK issue. The news everywhere around the world needs a more personal dimension, needs for people to absorb it in ways that they can understand how to leverage it for their own advantage, and not just be looking at it as a sad piece of information or facts lined up, right? So thank you for that, Emily. Martha, what would you say at Scholars Occurrences, if I'm pronouncing that right? Has this zooming in and zooming out been?
Okay, so for us, I thought about this question and I was thinking about a personal experience. I'm a 26-year-old teacher, and I've never imagined the situation where I couldn't be able to be in touch, like physically with my students, with youth. And so this happened as well with the teachers that we work with. So we had this phone call in March when the lockdown in Italy came. Teachers from all over Italy called us to say, we don't know what to do with the kids virtually. We don't know how we can manage this new world. So we just were with them and we just listened to each and one of them. And from that encounter, they realized the importance of listening to their kids, to their youth. So they started going to their classes, virtual classes, and they started asking each and one of their students, how were they? So then they realized that from that point, everything that they had to learn, it was different because they had connected somehow with their students that they saw before, but they didn't have this this time to really ask how were they. So they kept on sharing all this little beautiful experiences, and then we realized that we had to take this globally. We just had to reach every youth that we have met before physically and ask them how were they. That is how we started creating this virtual meetings, international virtual meetings. So this Zoom Out was the experience of bringing together the youth from all over the world, and they were so impressed of how, experience from Haiti, kids from Haiti that were living a lockdown that was really particularly because of the economical situation, and maybe kids from Miami that had a different situation, and then from Japan. So we had really interesting experience in each point of the world. So it was kind of we went this Zoom Out so that we could see and listen to each one of them, and then in each country that we are in, we started acting and accompanying each youth.
I would love to know, Martha, while you're talking about your work, your organization is widely spread across geographies, and there's so many people who are part of it. Is there a particular life lesson that you can condense for our viewers and audience today that you have particularly learned that you necessarily didn't know before?
So my life lesson is probably I realize how diverse we are, first of all, and how diverse the youth are from all over the world. But at the same time, how we are we have something in common. And I think that this experience in the past months, we're like really connecting worldwide, and then at the same time, like connecting with life. It was strange how we got to connect. I got to connect with each youth within a screen, but at the same time with this life experiences that were so, full of really real life. I don't know how to express it, because it was, for me, listening to all the stories, being in touch with them. I don't know. I think it was my life experience in this past month.
That's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. I think many people now need to pause and reflect and listen better, because now they have the time to do so, and the intention, hopefully. Emily, I've been wondering to myself, what would be that one condensed life lesson that you would say you have taken in from this experience, this life-altering experience for many in the world? Is there something that you would like to share with us?
Yes, and this might sound strange, but my big lesson from this year is actually to worry less, because I have spent, especially the last 5 years, spending a lot of time worrying about things like funding as a small charity, or things that are outside our control, like whether schools' priorities might change and it might be harder for them to focus on news literacy. And then this year, we were faced with larger challenges than any of the ones that my worrying brain had imagined. And yet the resilience of our team and the creativity and positivity and resilience of the teachers that we work with has been massively inspiring. And so, the big lesson is that people are resilient, and creativity and positivity can overcome the biggest challenges. And we've seen wonderful things be achieved this year in our charity, in other charities like those that we're talking to today, and in our schools. So it's been really empowering to see what people can overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned about positivity, I think hope and optimism allows us to get through this together, which is, a beautiful thing in itself, and also allows to hold a promise. For all those of you who've listened to Martha and Emily's wonderful perspectives, I hope that you're able to build one for yourself, a promise for the future. And as Maya Angelou, the great African-American author says, when you know better, you do better. And this is our chance of doing better, because now we certainly have more information about what we know. Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the Global Collection Launch. Thank you, Emily and Martha.
Thank you, Deepak. And as Emily said, the resilience that 2020 has made our Innovators show has been inspiring. And if you're interested in learning more about the innovations, you can watch the innovation pitches on the Summit app as well as our YouTube channel. But before we close, I have a very important man standing next to me. He's the co-founder and executive director of HundrED, Lasse Leppäniemi. He's been putting all this virtual summit together, all the tech tools, computers, apps, too many things. So Lasse, how are you feeling with the first ever virtual summit?
Well, I'm super excited about this, and maybe it's a good thing that you are not seeing what is on the behind the camera, because there is a total mess of hundreds, maybe dozens of computers and different equipment, so that we have been able to live stream this to you all over the world. We have been having like hundreds of people watching this from multiple different countries. So we are very happy to welcome the whole HundrED community to be part of this experience this evening.
Absolutely. And again, thank you to our sponsors for making this happen. We wouldn't have been able to make this virtual summit happen at this large global scale without your support. But Lasse, for the ones who are joining the summit for the first time, how should they make the most out of the next few days, and what should we be expecting?
So First of all, I think the beauty of the 100 Innovation Summit is that you are able to connect with your fellow innovators and other education stakeholders around the world. So please use the Identify application, be active on the chatting streams and find connections you might find interesting and exciting for your own work. So that is my recommendation number one. And then for the coming 2 days, we have a wonderful program available. It's not only about the main program, we have the community track and also the Helsinki Education Week events happening at the same time than our 100 Innovation Summit. And if we are looking the next few days, for example, tomorrow we have an interesting session called Quality Education for All. Where we are discussing about how to provide good quality education in vulnerable locations and in different corners of the world. And on Friday, we are then giving a voice also to the students when we are talking about education in 2030 and what kind of educational possibilities we should provide to our students, our children in the future. But then also tomorrow there is something interesting happen. But before we go there, back to books.
Yeah, no, and I think something that Lasse forgot was also the masterclass sessions. So please, again, there's a lot happening. We can't give you the whole list. That means you need to join the Summit app and go explore. If there are any questions or concerns, of course, send a message to the 100 team. But we're very, very excited for you to join this summit, but also for all 100 innovations who have done incredible work. And we're so proud to welcome you into our community. Lasse, any closing words?
Yes, so thank you so much for being with us tonight. It has been our absolute pleasure to provide these different sessions. As a closing video for today, we are actually going to show something from tomorrow. So one of the sessions which was a lot requested from us was a tribute for Sir Ken Robinson. And that session will take place tomorrow at the same time that this event took place. And we will close off with our 100 community greetings to Sir Ken Robinson. So please be prepared to getting a little bit emotional with that one. And I hope to see you tomorrow in our sessions. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
See you tomorrow.
Sir Ken Robinson has been a huge inspiration for me.
Encourage students to go deep into their own creativity.
You have inspired me with your clever messages, your creative ideas, and new concepts about education.
Like many of you, I saw the world's greatest TED Talk, The Schools Kill Creativity. So Ken, you put that into words so beautifully.
He taught me about creativity and how the environment and circumstances had to be right.
I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for his vision for the future of education.
Only to mention him as a referent was a sign of quality in all our presentations from the beginning.
His trademark humour gave form and made accessible so many ponderings that were percolating away in my mind and heart.
Through his talks, books, I understood the role creativity is playing inside our classrooms and outside it.
We met him in 2017 in person. He signed our t-shirts, thanked us for our work as arts teachers, and even thanked our son Astor for driving 2 hours to meet him.
If it wasn't for Sir Ken, I'm quite sure I would not be where I am today in an arts integrated school. In a community arts centre.
The role of a creative leader is not to just have all the ideas, but to create an environment where everybody can have ideas and feel they are valued. As a teacher educator, I'm striving hard to create such an environment for my community.
His aspirational vision of what teaching and learning should look like emboldened me to start my own education company to push for quality education that celebrates the creative human spirit.
Especially his TED Talk School Kills Creativity and the book Creative Schools, both were instrumental for me to make a decision to enter into education field.
Sir Ken, you have always been an incredible inspiration to us, and we were lucky to be able to meet you a couple of times, at which we asked if you would be willing to write a foreword to our book. And collaborating with you and making that happen for real was a tremendous privilege. And the way you endorsed our work, what we do with students and educators around the world, was an incredible honor.
His famous quote that education is not a delivery system but rather an art form has been a great inspiration for me to provide stress-free, play-based and creative learning experiences for children.
I remember about a decade ago when I did my first workshop, I used the Changing Educational Paradigms video. And I've used it probably since then in multiple continents and multiple countries as I've done workshops globally.
Thank you, Sir Ken Robinson, for your service to education.
Thank you for what you have done for education around the world.
谢谢你对教育的贡献，真是10年树木，百年树人。谢谢 Sir Ken Robinson.
Շնորհակալ եմ կրթության մեջ ձեր ներդրման եւ նվիրվածության համար.
Gracias, Sir Ken Robinson, pel vostre servei a l'educació.
Merci pour votre service à l'humanité et l'éducation, Monsieur Robinson.
கல்வித்துறையில் நீங்கள் செய்த மிகப்பெரிய சேவைகளுக்கு எங்களுடைய மனமார்ந்த நன்றிகள்.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Ken Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Ken.
Thank you so much for your service to education, Sir Ken Robinson.
We will continue your work to achieve an education that is holistic, that is creative, that smashes the education system we currently have, which is not fit for purpose, and avoid catastrophe. We love you, Ken. Thank you.